Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to part 2. Let me introduce the next researcher, Mairead Crinion. And Mairead is one of our members who has immense talent. As I said again, she looks after the genealogy of people, places and families. She was a member of the secretary for many years, and now is co-editor of our journal. And by the way, our journals are for sale outside, always present. It's always handy to have one because you never know when you're going to need a bit of research. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mairead. It's going to bring us to the buildings and the places to see. Thank you.
So we'll start with Navan House, Navan, where the Hamley family moved to between 1883 and 85. They were living here at the time all these photos were taken. It can be found on the Dublin Road in Navan at the junction at the new St Martha's Bridge. The original name of this house was Fairview, and it was described in the 1835-36 Ordnance Survey Field Name Book as a gentleman's house with some ornamental grounds and a large garden attached. It is a handsome residence recently erected near the road to Dublin by Dr. L. Byron. It's a 2-storey residence with landscape gardens and a wooded area. And this is Boyne View House, which is directly opposite Knockboyne House, on the eastern bank of the River Boyne. It's on the opposite side of the new St Martha's Bridge, and was built around 1820. Today it has a more modern projecting porch with slats on top and extensions to the rear. There's a limestone summer house in the garden believed to date to the early 19th century. We're not sure who the young man is in the picture with his bundle. This is the same house, a later view of Boyne View House than the last shot, after some renovation work was done. Even later renovations reinstalled that second story to the porch in glass. So they visited there twice, before and after. This is Athlone Castle and Garden. According to the 2014 study by Austin G. Fennessy on the building phases of the castle, the tower house section to the right-hand side was likely constructed between 1429 and 1449. The whole building was built over 2 periods and in 2 distinct styles. The older part being the defensive tower house as a 3-storey building with thick walls and slit windows for defence at the heart of the manorial settlement of Athlone. The later extension of the castle, which is on the left-hand wing, the big wing that we see there, was built in the late 16th or early 17th century. It's a 3-storey Tudor manor house with 4 sets of widely spaced mullioned windows. It shows a lot of contrast with the earlier defensive tower house. Note the well-kept gardens. This is Liscarton Castle here. It's thought likely that this is Tina Hamley on the far right in the bonnet, in the straw boat her had. It dates from the 16th or 17th century and consisted of 2 towers joined by a hall. One of the towers was later adapted to make a dwelling. Notice here that this is a thatched castle. Liscarton was held by Sir William Talbot in 1633. He was father of Richard Talbot, the Duke of Tyrconnell, who was made in February 1687 the Lord Deputy of Ireland under James II. Liscarton was in the hands of the Cullen family in the later half of the 19th century, so at the time of this photo and all the other photos. In 1876, James Cullen of Liscarton held 745 acres in County Meath. He was the younger brother of Cardinal Paul Cullen, who was elected Archbishop of Armagh in 1850, later Archbishop of Dublin, and he became the first Irish cardinal in 1867. James Cullen died at Liscarton in 1886. He had married Kate Lynch, and they had 4 sons and 6 daughters. One of their daughters, Frances, married Frederick Clayton of Clayton's Mill in 1882. Another daughter, Mary Ann, married Mark Delaney of Dunmow House. Two of their sons became Vincentian priests. The first, Paul, became president of Castleknock College. His brother, Edward, was a chaplain who served at the front during World War I. Their brother Hugh inherited Liscarton. He and his wife, Mary Hester Colgan, were succeeded in 1937 by their son, also called Hugh. He had served as an officer in World War I and was wounded. Later, he married in 1944 and lived at Liscarton until his death in 1965. In the following year, the property was sold. This is another view of the same property. I think it's really sad to think someone was living in it in 1965 and it's in ruins today. It's just sad. This is the avenue approach to Ardsala House here. Interestingly, Maura, who spoke first, her husband's cousins, the Murray family, owned this house. I think it's interesting that her ancestors obviously visited the place, and then later she ends up connected by marriage to the current owners. Funny how life can circle, I guess. At this time period, the house would have been in the ownership of the McCann family. That would be James McCann, who Navan has so much to be thankful to for. He bought out the Russell or Bedford estate, which this house and very, very large parts of Navan was once part of. And this is also the beautiful Ardsala taken from the River Boyne, so it's the reverse of the other picture, the other side of the house. Dowdstown House is on the old Dublin Road, and which can be accessed via Dalgan Park. The Taylors, a military family, were owners of Dowdstown up to 1916, although it was rented out a number of times. Dowdstown was vacant from 1914 to 26, when it was bought by the Columban Fathers, who needed a site near Dublin to meet the growing demands of training missionaries. They paid £15,250 for the estate, which they renamed Dalgan, in memory of their first college in Mayo. This is the Curry Monument. This headstone or monument was made by the Curry family, Navan's stonemasons from Bridge Street. It is possible that the Hanley family were looking for a headstone and took photos of what was available in Curry's yard at the time. There's a section there on the right a bit closer to look at the quality of the fine work on that stone. And this is the same Curry headstone in St. Mary's Cemetery today. It seems that the Curry family found that they sadly needed the stone themselves when William Curry passed away in July 1895. William Curry was the builder of the belfry on St. Mary's Catholic Church in 1861. So, when he passed in 1895, his name was the first of the Curry family recorded on this stone. Note they shortened the overall height by taking out a section on the upright. May have been top heavy. And this is another Curry monument, photographed in the same yard on the same day. We haven't located this stone today, so if anyone recognises it, we'd love to know where it is. Again, there's some detail of the very fine decorative work in those swags and that rope. It's when you zoom in, the detail is very, very sharp on it. This is Dunmow House on the Navan Slane Road. It's not in the best condition, but it's still worth seeing all the same. At the time of this photo, the home was to Mr. Mark Delaney and his wife, Mary Ann, née Cullen of the Liscarton Castle family. They married in 1873, and they had 7 children here, 3 boys and 4 girls. Their eldest son, also called Mark, inherited Dunmow. And I'll zoom in on that because it's not easy to see in the original there. But there are some people in that picture. When you zoom in, you can see them. So I'll just try and get this red dot to move about. There's a woman, come on, sitting up here on the steps. And what you might see is there's a second woman standing at the bottom of the steps here, in her bonnet, sort of side on to us. There's a young lady sitting here, a younger girl here, a young boy over here, and a boy on the right here sitting on his donkey. You can see him. If you didn't zoom in on that picture, you'd never pick them out. One of the Delaney daughters, Pauline, maybe one of these girls, later married Mr. John Spicer of Belmont House, Navan, in 1909. This is Dunmo House today. It's the same place. There we go. This is the bride, Agnes, at her new marital home outside Drumbarra House near Kells, in her very smart trap, and must have been like going around in a sports car at the day. This is Drumbarra House near Kells, where she went to live with her husband. And it was purchased by the Sweetman family in 1859, and it remained in the family's hands until 1958. It was originally built in about 1800, with Francis Johnson thought to be the designer. John Sweetman, Agnes's husband, was active in nationalistic politics. He joined the Irish Land League, and he proposed Meath's MP, Charles Stewart Parnell, for the position of President of Ireland. He was one of the first Meath landowners to dispose of his estate under the 1903 Land Act. In 1891, he sold his family's interest in their brewery in Dublin to Arthur Guinness and Sons, and then devoted his time fully to politics. As we've seen, he married Agnes in 1895, and in 1899 he was elected to Meath County Council. He was its chairman from 1902 to 08. He was one of the founders and financial backers of Sinn Féin in 1905, and was the party's second president in 1908. He was arrested at Drumbarra House after the 1916 Rising, despite not having any part in it, and was imprisoned for a while in England. John Sweetman was opposed to women's suffrage, and was criticised for endowing a scholarship to UCD on the condition that females should be excluded from entering for it. I wonder what Agnes had to say. He supported the pro-treaty side in the Civil War, later changed to supporting Fianna Fáil. He died in 1936. John Walter Sweetman, the eldest son of John and Agnes, inherited Drumbarra on the death of his father. John Walter died in 1961. This house has us very perplexed. We thought it might be Brownstown Lodge or Kilrean House in Slane, but on closer examination those have been eliminated. If anyone knows where it might be, we'd be very glad to hear from you afterwards, please. And a closer view of the people in that photograph. Agnes is here in the centre, obviously dressed for visiting, as is the lady in the trap, both in their jackets. So it appears that it's maybe the home of the other two ladies. Now those two ladies appear in many of the photos with the Hanley girls and would appear to be their good friends or maybe relations. Unfortunately, we don't know who they are and would really like to know. So if anyone can identify them or the house, catch me later, please. This is Gerardstown Castle. In 1835, Gerardstown House or Castle and its domain was the property of Mr. Corbley. It was located at Gerardstown townland on the road from Johnstown to Walterstown, just beyond the GAA pitch there, close by Staffordstown House. In front of the house was the site of an even earlier castle and a mound or possibly a motte. This building in the photograph here replaced that second version of Gerardstown Castle and was newly built as its replacement in 1872. So this red brick house replaced the older or middle version of Gerardstown Castle. This new house had 6 sitting rooms and 14 bedrooms. In the 1901 and 1911 census, Cecilia Letitia Shirley Ball, née Humphreys, a widow, lived at Gerardstown Castle. The house had 25 rooms with 11 windows to the front. Now the front of the house is over on the left. This is the front. There's 11 windows. The front door is there, and there's some steps up to the front door. The outside, there were 27 outbuildings. Mrs. Shirley Ball died there in 1924, and it was demolished when the Land Commission took over the property, I believe. Again, there's some people in this photograph. We'll just have a quick look at them. We don't know who they are, these men are, but one is holding a cricket bat, and at the bottom of the house steps, it's reproduced there on the right, there's a tennis racket. It shows us that sports were an important part of the social scene in the day. And another close-up, if you didn't see it in the first picture, over the roof of Gerardstown Castle, they were flying the Union Jack. This photo was titled in the box as Shirley Ball on the steps of Gerardstown Castle. I think it's interesting that he's wearing espadrilles on his feet, which are a Spanish shoe. So we can take from it that he likely visited Spain at some point. He's also very proud of his little terrier dog who has just caught the rat proudly displayed on the steps. Oh, handy dog. This is the view. This is J.C. Sullivan's Kilberry Stud at Kilberry Crossroads. This view is taken from the Stackallan Road side of the village. The stud had 150 acres attached. Some very successful racehorses were bred there, including an excellent mare called Kilberry, by a highly successful bought-in stallion called Winkfield. He in turn was father to a very good winning racehorse called Winkfield Pride, winner of the Prix du Conseil Municipal, the Lincoln Handicap,